I mean, the most expensive lesson for me specifically is process is everything, right? Like I am one of your stereotypical, amazing ICs who's suddenly become an entrepreneur, but I was never a process driven person. I'm still not to some degree, meaning that, if you have me do like your site audit, I might do it a different way every time because I'm always like, there's something more to look for. I'm not just looking at a checklist. I'm not just, rattling off this process that I do every single time. And when you hire people, they need that. Like not everyone operates the same way an entrepreneur operates. Most people want like a blueprint for here's how you do this the right way. Here are the thinking points that you need to have like laid out for you because they just don't feel so comfortable figuring it out as they go. And that's a really expensive lesson because there are people that probably would have been really good if we gave them a clear and very detailed process map that weren't good because they didn't thrive in the environment that I thrive in. And so it took me a long time to be like, all right, there needs to be checklists and examples and so on and so forth. Otherwise, like we're just going to burn so many cycles of inefficiency of people trying to figure out how I did things. And then when they do that, they just replicate the one version they saw me do, which is not the way to think about it, right? Because again, every client needs something different. And just because I called out this specific issue for one client doesn't mean we need to look for that every time or we need to highlight that every time. So having the process is how we get the flexibility for people to be able to think because they're already clear on what it is that the base level looks like. So very expensive because, we probably would have retained more clients had we had that. We would have had, less switch costs on people that were either fired or left or what have you. And yeah, that's probably the biggest, most expensive lesson I've had in my career.
Awesome. And your agency's coming up to 11 years old. In that time, have you ever felt stuck in your agency's growth, and what kind of strategies
Absolutely.
to break through?
Absolutely. I think as we've gotten out of the pandemic, it's been very difficult. We're in a great place now, but like prior to that, it, I want to blame it on the economy, but at the same time, I look around and I see some agencies like that just did well the whole time. And so I think it was a function of, not having consistent marketing, not to blame Garrett, because Garrett is great. He's done great work for us the whole time. But for a long time, he was just a one-man army, right? Like he's having to build out his team to really support where we want to go. And so the lack of resources kind of begets lack of resources because you don't end up getting the growth that you need to sustain things. And you kind of feel like, you're doing like these little schemes over and over, like, hey, we tried this, it didn't work. And you're like, do I know what I'm doing? And then you get to a point where something happens and things just start to work and the flywheel catches on. And you're like, oh, yeah, that was what I was supposed to be doing. I just wasn't creating enough attention around the company for it to be sustainable in the way that we wanted it to. So for us, the big change really is what happened last year with the algo document leaks that created, a lot of attention on us. But again, we already had a lot of the piping in place for this system where we have, like a really dialed in marketing program. We just weren't getting enough people into the funnel. But overnight, literally overnight, we got, like 100,000 people in the funnel. And so that turned into a ton of leads, which then turned into a lot of business because, our sales process is pretty dialed in as well. So if you're someone who's like stuck in the rut and you're like, oh, nothing is working, I would say the first step is like, make sure that you have everything dialed in the way that makes sense. So do you have lead nurturing campaigns set up? Do you have the right set of offers and all those sorts of things? And then do whatever it takes to get like the eyeballs on your agency, whether that's speaking, whether that's, guest blogging for, sites in your industry that everyone looks at, or doing some sort of big study Or if you're lucky, you get your white swan moment or whatever they call it, like we had, where everyone is suddenly looking at you. You'll then see like, hey, if we did the right job preparing for this, it's going to work. But yeah, beyond that, I would just say look for additional partnerships. Like different software companies are very valuable, and really just nurture those relationships and keep trying to create those instances where you're going to get a lot of attention.
If you've gotten value from this clip and you'd like to watch another like it, click here. It's one of them. Now that I know that you stayed around until the end, you're either an agency owner or work at an agency. So with that said, if you're hiring for an SEO or a paid media role and you'd like help to recruit this talent for you, like I've done for at least probably about 100 plus companies now, with an average placement period of 25 days and a 1-year satisfaction guarantee on all placements, then there's 2 links in the description below. So if you need help with hiring, either click the link and book a strategy call with me or my team. Thank you, and I hope you found value from this clip.